Hi, welcome back to Guitar Toots by Al. I'm Al Gustin.
And if you're a geezer like me,
Or if you listen to classic rock, you might recognize that chord progression as the one from Long Train Runnin' by the Doobie Brothers. Now, if you'll notice another thing, all the chords that I played on that chord progression were done with bar chords. And in this lesson, I'm going to teach you about bar chords, and it'll just open up a whole new world of music for you and musical expression. Bar chords are an amazing way to play chords that you can't play in an open position down by the nut on your guitar. So by the time you're done with this lesson, you're going to be amazed at the musical opportunities that have opened up to you on the guitar. So stick with it, and I'll see you in a bit. Before I get into showing you how to play bar chords, I want to explain something to you. This is the nut of the guitar, and if you tuned into my very first lesson, I showed you pictures of the guitar fingerboard and the nut, the headstock, and the frets, and a couple simple chords like this D chord, C chord, F, E, and A. Now, if I were to pretend that my finger, my index finger on my fretting hand, was the nut, and I positioned these other fingers like I was playing an E chord, now that's an E chord, right? The nut is acting as the index finger on a bar chord. If I move this up one fret, I'm playing an F chord. It's a bar chord, F chord, okay? But it's the same exact fingering as this open E chord with the added index finger acting as the nut. So what I'm doing is, if I'm fretting this all the way across the fretboard, and then I add these fingers in the E chord position, I can play that major chord all the way up the neck. Here's G, A, B, C, D, and all the way up to the 12th fret is higher E. Isn't that cool? So essentially, any chord that you play in the open position, with the exception of a few, you can play as a bar chord. One of the ones that would be very difficult for any of us to play would be a C chord. Okay, if I tried to play that as a bar chord, I would need to do this. And that's pretty much of a reach for people like me with stubby fingers, but okay? That's an E flat chord, played as a bar chord, okay? And the fingering is the same as an open C chord. Essentially, that's what bar chords are all about. I'll give you another example. Here's an A chord played in the open position. Okay, and the fifth string A is the root of that chord. Okay, now if I were to move that up 3 frets, this is the C note, which is the root of the chord, and I'm barring the 3 notes that would be fretted in an A chord in the open position with my third finger. This is a very hard chord to play for beginners, but I just want to make a point. Okay? That is the same as playing an A chord down here. Okay, just 3 frets up. Stick with me for a bit, and I'm going to show you some basic bar chords, and I'm going to show you some chord charts that correspond with those chords. I'll show you the chart first, and then I'll show you how to finger it on the guitar, okay? This is a chord symbol or chord chart representing an E major chord played in the open position. Notice that the thick black line at the top of the symbol or chord chart represents the nut of the guitar, and the circles with the numbers in them represent your fingering positions. In other words, your first finger is fretting the first fret on the 3rd string, your third finger is fretting the 2nd fret on the D string or 4th string, and your second finger is fretting the 2nd fret of the 5th string or A string, and that configuration is the E major chord. Here's a live shot of me playing this chord to show you what the fingers look like on the fretboard and what it sounds like when it's played. Here's an alternate way to play that same E major chord, and I want you to take notice of how this is fingered. The second finger on the first fret of the third string, the fourth finger on the second fret of the fourth string, and your third finger on the second fret of the fifth string. This is in preparation for playing this E major chord as a bar chord further up on the fingerboard, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second. If you studied my first lesson and learned some basic chords, you'll remember this F chord. And this F chord you may also remember was a little bit difficult for you to play, and it may still be a little bit difficult for you to play depending on how much you're practicing. But the reason this is difficult to play is because you're actually playing two strings with one finger. The index finger, or your first finger, is doing a little mini bar across the first and second strings at the first fret. Now, I want you to also notice that the fifth and sixth strings are not played as indicated by the two little X's above the nut above the fifth and sixth strings, because if you tried to play those strings open, they would sound bad because they don't fit with this F chord. We can further enhance this F chord by changing the fingering around a little bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to add your fourth finger. You're going to move your third finger over to the third fret on the fifth string, and you're going to add your fourth finger on the third fret of the fourth string, and it looks like this. Now, notice that you still cannot play the sixth string open because it's still indicated by the X above the sixth string, because it still won't fit in this F chord. But look at this. If we bar across the first fret, all six strings with our first finger, and then add the second, third, and fourth fingers as indicated, we are now playing an F major bar chord. We are getting all six strings and the richness and fullness of a chord that's played on all six strings of the guitar. Standard F chord, bar F chord. Hear the difference. Standard F chord, bar F chord. Hear the bottom end, hear the difference. Wimpy, powerful. Now I also want you to notice one thing. This is the note F, yes? And that is the root of this bar chord. That's an F bar chord. This is an E chord, and the sixth string, open E, indicates the root of this chord. That lets you know that this is an E chord. Okay? The F note lets you know that this is an F major chord. And that is a little trick for you to study. Learn the notes up the neck. Okay, this is E, F, G flat, G, A flat, A. Okay? And when you're there at A and you play that bar chord, you know that that's an A chord. Okay, this is the note G, and you play that bar chord there at that position. This is a G chord. F. This is what's known as the root of the chord. Usually, it is the first low note of a chord that you play as a bar chord. F, G, A. Here's a graphic that explains that a little bit. If you'll notice, on the left-hand side here, you have the note designations for the sixth string. The sixth string open is E. If you fret it at the first fret, it's F. If you fret it at the second fret, it's F sharp. Fret it at the third fret, it's G. Fret it at the fourth fret, it's G sharp, and so on. So when you play that E major chord configuration as a bar chord, you'll know that the root of the chord is the note that is played on that sixth string, which is where the bar is, where your index finger goes across and forms the bar. Now the root note of other bar chords, or chords that are in a different configuration than the E major chord, the A chord for example, that will be different. The root note of the bar chord that's played as an A chord configuration will be the A string, the note that's played on the A string that's barred. And you can see by the graphic here that I've made for you, how that works out. So I'm going to include a PDF file of some graphics that'll explain this to you, and I'm going to show you some other bar chord configurations in that PDF file that you can practice on your own. Don't forget to go back to the blog post that contains this lesson and look for the link to the PDF file that contains lots more graphics and explains other bar chord configurations. In the meantime, keep practicing, have fun, and I'll see you in the next lesson.